In this episode of Trekking Through Compliance, we take up the episode That Which Survives.
Compliance, the final frontier. Tom Fox is the voyager of Trekking Through Compliance. His mission? To explore the original series and seek out and share what it can teach you about compliance. Here's your host, Tom Fox.
Trekking Through Compliance, episode 72, That Which Survives. In this episode of Trekking Through Compliance, we consider the episode That Which Survives, which aired on January 24, 1969, and occurred on stardate unknown. Story synopsis. McCoy, Sulu, Kirk, and senior geologist D'Amato beam down to investigate a strange planet the size of a moon, but with the mass of the Earth. The planet has no magnetic field, but does have a well-developed atmosphere and plant life, despite the fact that the planet appears to be only 1,000 years old. After the landing party is beamed down, a strange woman appears and says, "Wait, you must not go," and kills the transporter officer. The landing party discovers there is more afoot than reaches the eye when both they and the Enterprise are tossed wildly. Much to the surprise of the landing party, Spock, Scott, and the Enterprise is knocked 990.7 light years away from the planet. An autopsy performed on the transporter operator by Dr. Sanchez, because remember, Bones is on the planet, reveals that the deaths resulted from the disruption of every cell in his body. Spock does not know what to make of this, but returns to the planet at Warp 8. The landing party splits up, and Sulu reports a magnetic spike, which then vanishes. D'Amato is sent in search of underground water by Kirk, but is killed by the woman who zapped the transporter operator when she says, "I am for you," and then touches him. When Kirk tries to dig a grave using his phaser, he makes no progress and discovers that the rocks of the planet are composed of dibrinium osmosium alloy. Burial is then accomplished by decovering D'Amato with rocks. Meanwhile, aboard the Enterprise, engineer grade 4 John B. Watkins, not to be confused with the sloop John B., is killed by the woman when he checks out the bypass circuit, but not before he warns Scott that a strange woman is aboard the Enterprise. The cause of death is found to be cellular disruption in every cell of his body. Back on the planet, the woman appears in front of Sulu and tries to touch him. Sulu tries to shoot her, but his phaser is ineffective, and the woman touches Sulu when he trips over a rock, but she is only able to damage his shoulder before Kirk interposes himself and finds that she cannot harm him. On the Enterprise, the woman rigs the engines to explode by fusing the emergency bypass circuit on the Matar antimatter integrator. The Enterprise begins accelerating out of control, and Spock estimates the Enterprise will explode in 14.87 minutes with no way to stop it. Back on the planet, Kirk's phaser overloads itself, and Kirk is forced to fling it away. The woman appears again and tries to touch Kirk, but is prevented by McCoy and Sulu. She identifies herself as Losira, the commander of the station, but she does not register on McCoy's tricorder. Kirk follows the off-scale reading to an entrance, which then opens. Scotty saves the Enterprise from exploding by reversing polarity on the magnetic probe and returning the magnetic flow to normal. The Enterprise then begins decelerating from its peak speed of warp 15.2. Seriously fast. When the landing party enters the chamber, they find a glowing cube and a copy of Losira, who is for James T. Kirk. At first, he is protected by Sulu and McCoy, but two more Losiras appear, one for McCoy and one for Sulu. Spock rescues the landing party at this juncture, and when he beams down and destroys the computer, which was projecting the image of the woman Losira. When a record tape is automatically played, they find out that the planet they are on is actually a space post built by the Kalandans, who were all killed by a disease they created while building the planet. The outpost was left on automatic, with the computer attempting to fend off all explorers but the expected Kalandan ship. Kirk prepares to return to the Enterprise. He comments in response to a statement by Spock that beauty such as Losira's is transitory, that, quote, beauty survives, end quote. So what is today's fun fact? Well, the fun fact is that Losira was portrayed by or played by former Miss America Lee Merriweather, who went on to perhaps become a little more famous as a co-star to Buddy Ebsen in the 1970s television series Barnaby Jones. Previously, she had been a regular on one of my favorite all-time television shows, Irwin Allen's short-lived science fiction series, The Time Tunnel, along with James Darren and Whit Bissell. There are some interesting continuity issues in this episode. This is the second time the Enterprise crew members create a resting place for a fallen comrade. It had happened before in the first season's The Galileo 7, where crew members Lattimore and Gatineau were buried. Captain Picard buries Captain Kirk in a similar way on the planet Veridian 3 in the first Star Trek movie, Star Trek Generations. Commander Sulu mentions the Horta of Janus 6 from the great episode Devil in the Dark. This is one of the few examples in the series where a past episode is referenced. Interestingly enough, Sulu did not appear in that episode. And finally, this episode is only one of a handful of Star Trek, the original series episodes, not to contain a form of a log entry. Very unusual. So it's a lot of fun. Sadness at the end when you realize what had happened to the Caladians on this planet and how an automated system was still running, waiting for them all these years later. I'd like to use this episode to explore the question of what can compliance frameworks do to address unknown risks effectively. Obviously, compliance frameworks are designed to address known risks, but unknown risks require a more dynamic and adaptable approach. So what are some of the frameworks that can be effectively applied? Number one, scenario planning. Identify potential threats by brainstorming a wide range of potential threats, including those that are currently unforeseen or considered unlikely. Next, develop scenarios by creating detailed scheduling and scenarios that describe how these threats could materialize and impact your company. Next, analyze the impact by assessing the potential impact of each scenario on various aspects of your business, including operations, finance, reputation, legal, and compliance. And finally, develop response strategies for each scenario, including contingency plans, mitigation measures, and communication protocols. Number two, risk-based thinking. Now, this is not risk assessments, but risk-based thinking. So, prioritize high-impact risks by focusing on identifying such risks with the highest potential impact, even if their likelihood is low. Embrace uncertainty. Recognize that some risks are inherently unpredictable and accept that not all risks can be fully mitigated. Develop adaptive strategies by creating flexible and adaptive policies, procedures, strategies, and insights that can be adjusted as new information becomes available and the situation evolves or your business evolves. 3, continuous monitoring and evaluation. Establish monitoring systems by implementing systems for continuous monitoring the business environment for emerging threats and changes in risk profile. Conduct regular reviews of compliance programs and risk assessments to ensure they remain relevant and effective in addressing evolving risks. And then use data analytics to identify trends and patterns that may indicate emerging risks or changes in risk profile. Number 4, collaboration and information sharing. Internal collaboration is critical in a corporation to foster, and you as the compliance professional must foster collaboration between different departments and teams to share information and develop comprehensive risk management strategies. External partnerships. You should establish partnerships with industry experts, government agencies, and other external shareholders to gain insights and share best practice knowledge. And then finally, knowledge management. Develop a system for capturing and sharing knowledge about emerging risks, lessons learned, and best practices. Number 5, agile compliance. Embrace iterative processes by implementing iterative processes for risk assessment, control development, and monitoring, allowing for continuous improvement and adaptation. Promote experimentation by encouraging experimentation with new approaches and technologies to address emerging risks and enhancing compliance effectiveness. Foster a culture of innovation. That is, create a culture that values innovation in your company and encourages employees to identify and address emerging risks proactively. That sounds a lot like a culture of speak up and, more importantly, a culture of listen up. By combining these frameworks, compliance professionals can develop a more comprehensive and dynamic approach to managing known risks, ensuring that their organizations are prepared to face the unexpected and maintain compliance in a rapidly changing world. I hope you'll join me tomorrow on Trekking Through Compliance when we look at the lights of Zetar.
If you enjoyed this episode of Trekking Through Compliance, you can help it grow by sharing it with the biggest Trek fan you know.
This podcast is a part of the C-Suite Radio Network. For more top business podcasts, visit c-suiteradio.com.